Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first Get Creative Live Q&A. We'll just wait a little bit for people to fill up. I see a few people in the chat over in YouTube. I don't know who all is here natively live. And we're streaming to the Facebook groups as well. So we're just so happy to have by the way. I am Pace's lead social media manager. I'm an admin here in the Facebook group. I have a hand in a lot of the YouTube content you see, a lot of the Instagram content you see. So I'm here to just get Tim rolling and ask him some questions and help us learn a little bit about how we can do what he's up to. Tim, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How's everyone doing out there? And I appreciate the time and I appreciate the invite on the channel. And, you know, yeah, love to talk about real estate. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yes, let's go. I do see, oh yes, we've got people in the chat. Let's go, bro. Let's go, Tim. Let's freaking go. Okay, so we've got about 50 people here live. Hey, that's a pretty good turnout. I'm pretty happy with that.
Hey, that's pretty
First one,
cool.
guys. The first Q&A. If you saw Tim's episode drop today of Get Creative, and we can drop that link for you guys to check it out. It's available on wherever you get your podcasts. Here's a link to where we host it, but you can get it on Apple, Spotify, the whole 9 yards. And we drop a new episode every day. So there's folks like Tim doing real estate deals and making real profits across the country in every market, and you can be doing this too. So that's kind of what we want to show you in these Q&As, is that Tim's a real person. We're not just behind the mic. We're, here to talk to you and connect. So before you found Subto and joined?
Yeah, so I think I just hit my 1 year anniversary in Subto. So I just hit 1 year. I did my first real estate deal back in November 2022, and I tried to do it solo. So I tried to flip a house by myself and made all the typical mistakes of, getting the cheapest contractor, buying it because it was super cheap. And the project took 6 months and I ended up selling it for a profit of like $5,000. So, 6 months of work for $5,000 and a lot of pain and stress. I almost quit real estate after that. Like, I was like, man, this is not for me. And then, just from connecting with people and seeing social media, like I would see, people posting stuff about Subto and, seeing like Pace's stuff and all that crazy stuff on the internet. And I called the enrollment officer and he told me about all this stuff. And I was like, man, this is like, there's no way this is like real. So I didn't do it. And found out there's a local Subto meetup in my city in Louisville, Kentucky. And I went out there and met a Subto student. I think he's in the chat actually too. He convinced me to join Subto. I asked him, hey, is it what you think it is? And he's like, man, if you're serious about real estate investing, you gotta join, man. It's so crazy how much information you get. So I was like, cool. I used the profits from my flip and ended up joining Subto that way.
That's perfect. It's like kismet. You kind of found a new route. And Pace talks about that all the time, about you're not always going to find the perfect fit right away, or you might be a different avatar, or there might be a different route for you in real estate investing. It's not a one size fits all. Everyone can do their own roles and their own strengths in the industry.
Absolutely. Like, I think that the typical thing too is like everyone thinks about, you need a lot of money to get started in real estate. And the stuff you learn and the things you connect with, it's crazy what you can do in real estate and what you can buy without actually using like a ton of money. So I think that's why the program's been so cool. And also just meeting tons of people in the community across the nation that can help you with what you're, having issues with.
Yes. And people that are willing to help too. Like, I think it's so easy for us to say, there's people to help you, but the thing is, they're like waiting in line to help you. This is a community of go-givers. That's the culture we've built here. And we really pride ourselves on that. And it's just like like Godric just being like, no, it's worth it. Come through, like, do the thing with us. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So you kind of touch on this a little, but what ultimately made you want to join? Just that friendship?
Well, I think like any like mentorship, like there's so many people online talking about, being a coach or being a mentor or join my program, join this. I think the big thing is one, meeting people that I knew in real life or, real life that were actually a part of the program and had positive reviews. And I think the second big thing for me was like watching like Pace's content. Like I liked what he was like talking about, right? Like I liked how he did things. So like, there's so many different types of attitudes and philosophies in real estate. My mentor believed in one way, and that's how I kind of thought about things. And with the combination of just meeting people in my local market or people that I trusted, that kind of pushed me over the edge there.
Yeah, that confirmation bias of, oh, now I know people, yes, in real life. They're not just internet friends that I'm seeing on Instagram. That really is
Absolutely.
what turns it. Okay, so enough about our wonderful community. How did we find the deal? How did you come across this? Because it's
Yeah.
seller finance, right? 10K down.
Yep. So it's a 10K down seller finance. The gist of it was I'm normally a direct to seller and I called expired listings. That's how I kind of like got started. This lead was actually on a Facebook page in my local real estate, like, those wholesale Facebook groups. And there was a wholesaler that had this deal and they couldn't move the deal because it was just way too high of a cash offer. And I sent her a message and I said, "Hey, I'm a direct to seller investor. I JV. I love to like help negotiate. Do you need help on it?" And, just like the episode on the podcast, it's like she read it and she ignored it. So I find out that the deal was supposed to close escrow in a couple days. So I followed up with her, asked her, "Hey, just double checking. Do you still need help with it? Blah, blah, blah." And she read it again and it just, she left me a read. So I went direct to seller. I pulled the guy's phone number, the owner's phone number, and I called the owner. And then we had a 30-40 minute conversation. And we can get into that if you want to later. Um, and eventually he agreed to a 0% interest, $250 per month payment for 5 years. And
Wow.
average rents in the neighborhood is like $1,800 and midterm is like 2400. So it's kind of crazy.
Actual no-brainer. Like, what?
Yeah, like I was shocked that
Yeah.
this stuff is real, right? Yeah.
That's so good. And that in the Louisville market too, just for those rental rates, it's incredible. Um,
Yeah, cuz like rents like fluctuate in Louisville, like it's in a nice neighborhood too. That's why I was like really shocked. I was like, "Wow, this is like nuts," right?
yeah,
So, it was a good deal.
yeah, I love that. And yeah, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how that phone call went. How did, you know, you're direct to seller, but you started with the wholesaler. That wasn't working out. So, how do you build that rapport kind of when you've not gone around, but this person wasn't working with you kind of thing? How do you build that rapport with the seller as you reach out?
Yeah, so that was an interesting thing because I called the guy and I already kind of knew in the back of my head like something bad happened. So I said, "Hey, like I'm sure you're getting a ton of phone calls like this, and I know I was just honest. I said, "I know you're working with somebody. How has the process been going? Like, do you need any help? Like, do you want to talk about it?" And he started venting for like 20 minutes about, his experience with this investor. And I asked him, "Do you know why this happened?" And he's like, "Well, blah blah blah. I think she just like didn't have the money." And I was like, "Exactly. I think she's a wholesaler." And I explained the wholesaler, and they used like the scorched earth method. Was like, hey, this is what a wholesaler does. They lowball you to find another investor to give them the money to buy the house. And I said, if you do business with me, you do not have to worry about that, right? I am not a wholesaler. I will buy this house. You're still taking offers. And he was like, yep. And we went on and on and on. And he kind of talked about how getting these lowball offers and all this stuff. And I said, well, how much money do you want? And he said 150,000. And I was like, I will pay you that straight up. Like there's no, like, I'm not going to lowball. I'm not going to raise it lower. I'll give you 150 if you're open to getting paid over time. And there was like a 10, 15-second pause. And he's like, only if the paperwork's right. Right. And obviously like in Subto, like we have all the paperwork. So I was like, yeah, let's write it up. Right. So then we started talking about pricing and negotiations, and eventually ended up being a $250 monthly payment every month.
Oh,
But yeah,
that's so
it's
like
crazy.
feels so good. Also, what is that 15 seconds like where you're just in silence? You're like, I can get you that number over time, and you wait. I've
Yeah.
such a pregnant silence. It's so good.
It sounds like money, right? Like, like letting that guy like kind of like close himself. I think that's the big thing. And um, you just want to like make sure that that seller is thinking it through his head, and he's like, wow, this really is a good option, right? Like, I think the problem with a lot of investors, like they try to pitch the idea too fast. They want to just throw out, seller finance. Like they don't know anything about you, right? Like they need to build a little bit of trust before you throw those crazy offers down.
Yes, you have to start at ground zero, build the trust, then start talking about, because this is also, the housing market is something that is highly emotional for people too. Like this is someone's home. So building that rapport and trust is just so key, I feel like.
Yeah, it was his wife's first house. So, like that was her first house ever. And what's crazy is, I would if I could show my text message, but the seller is like actually kind of like my friend now. And when we were renovating the property, she texted me. She's like, "This is my first house, and like I would love for you to share pictures of how it's gonna look later." And I'm like, "Absolutely, right? Like I love her. Like I talk to her every single month when I pay her." So, I think like having that actual connection with those sellers, yes, it's a lot of work, but they trust me so much to be able to take a $250 payment every month. Like obviously like we have the paperwork, and like there's proper things that we did to make sure that they're safe, but they're like my friends, which is like the best part of it, right? Like so no matter what, like I think every salesperson would say, if we can't come to a deal, I would just like to be friends. And it's like a legitimate thing. And if you really believe that, I bet that the seller can feel that over the phone to be genuine, right? Instead of that typical salesperson trying to convince them to sell their house, right?
Yes. And Pace is always talking about this as well, is you don't know what that woman's going to go out and do with her $250 a month payment. First of all, but you also don't know what else she does in life, what other influence she has in the community, what other friends she has that might be moving away from a rental property, like your network is going to expand outside, especially in a market like Louisville, where you can lift yourself up and be like an industry leader there. All those connections matter. Like that's so
Absolutely.
powerful. So I think I remember that there were community members involved in the deal as well. Can you tell me a
Yes.
little bit about that? I don't recall all the details. I know there's some moving parts there.
Yeah. So what's crazy is there's like a couple of people that were a part of the deal. Obviously, we have the TC, the transaction coordinator that did all the paperwork for me. I'm not sure if she's in here or not, but she was awesome. Um, it was my first like deal myself. So it was like really, really important that like she was pushing it. And trust me, she's very like proactive. When I didn't answer an email, she would answer an email for me at the title company, which is awesome. Um, my partner in Subto, like my partner in real estate is from Subto. So he's my integrator. So while I have the luxury to talk to you guys on Facebook Live and all this stuff, he's in the background crunching the numbers, underwriting properties, and doing, the stuff that keeps us going, right? So I appreciate you, Jake. I hope you're doing well out there. And then private money lender as well. So, the money, I had a private money lender from the community fund my deal. I had a Gator lender that funded my deal. So this is like where I didn't talk about on the podcast, but I had a lender that dropped out last minute. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like we're about to close. He's like, I'm sorry, like I can't fund the deal. Luckily, I had a lender lined up on the background, but they needed 30 days to get their funds ready. So I called my buddy who's a Gator, and he funded the down payment for the property for 30 days. And then when my new private money lender came in, paid off my Gator. So that Gator lender saved me on that deal as well. And obviously, all the Subto community members that helped me with my sales negotiations, they were a part of it. They weren't directly a part of the deal, but their influence gave me the ability to close that deal. So all in all, I think about 5 people really participated in this deal to get it done. So absolutely incredible.
Yes. So good. Yeah, because that's another networking thing. The more plugged in you are, the more you have that leverage to pull in the other person, pull in the other Gator. And I think a big piece of this too, guys, everyone listening out there in Facebook world, is the networking that Tim did outside of the Facebook group. He was outside of the Subto Facebook group, outside of the Creative Real Estate with Pace Morby Facebook group, finding the deal. So always remember that when you're keeping an eye out on these Facebook groups, and start spreading out in that direction too. Okay, so Tim, what's next for you? What's next on the agenda? What are you looking for next? Oh, we can't hear you.
So
There you
my
go.
partner and I are trying to get ready to scale our marketing and scale our wholesale business. So right now, what we've been working on right now is we've been doing the Lonza method, where we help people, close deals. Like, so if they have motivated sellers, I would usually get on the phone and try to help out a wholesaler. And we've done pretty well, but now we're trying to do our own thing. We're trying to bring some closers onto the team, some acquisition managers. We're hoping to train them in what we do, and then hopefully they can start doing their own stuff one day, right? Kind of have that churning machine of wholesale marketing stuff going on. And on the side as well, from the networking at Subto, I've met other, business partners as well, where we're working on a seller finance deal on a multifamily in Louisville, Kentucky. So we've been talking to multiple brokers and sellers, and we have about 3 or 4 deals that we're looking to hopefully lock down in the next 6 months ish. So lots of stuff going on. We're super excited, and it's literally, every person you meet is, you never know what they're going to bring, right? And if you've met me like 18 months ago when I had 0 properties or whatever, like I would have never imagined that that I'd be talking about taking down a 22 unit seller finance deal, right? So it's pretty cool.
It's really wild to see how quickly people progress once they start doing deals and getting the confirmation bias, but then all of the lessons you all learn along the way. I feel like every person I talk to is, just 10xing what they're doing and scaling thoughtfully, because that's a big piece of this too, right? And like clearly that's what you and your integrator are doing, and
Yeah.
that's so cool.
Yeah. I tell people that reach out to me, hey, I'm sorry, I'm coughing, but sorry that like, you know, like how are you doing all this stuff? And I'm like, dude, don't do what I did. Right. So I tell people, do not try to do something that other people are doing on social media or whatever it is, because I had a lot of problems, right, on the back end, like growing too fast where the wheels are coming off. Like, you don't want that. Um, Scale with purpose and scale with intention, right? Like, once you get a deal, make sure that deal is stabilized, learn a little bit more, and then go take some more action. You know, imperfect action is really great, but you don't want to take like an endless amount of imperfect action, right? And then you're like kind of screwed. So take it slow. It's okay to take it slow and learn every single deal you do, you learn, right? You absolutely learn. So I think that's the most important thing.
Yes, yes. You can't eat the whole sandwich at once. Take a bite, chew that bite, then go on to the next thing.
Absolutely. Just like the elephant challenge.
Yes.
Right?
The last thing I wanted to kind of ask you, if someone was sitting, all these people that are sitting in our Facebook group, right? Our free Facebook group. We send a lot of people there from YouTube, from Instagram, and I think we have a lot of I think there's people sitting in inaction in that way. And if any of them were on the fence about checking out any of the communities or taking action to move forward with community members in mind, what's your advice to them, I guess, reaching out to community members and getting involved?
Oh, geez. I think it really depends on what they're trying to do, right? I think that there's so many different things, and I've talked to a lot of people on the phone or do social media, and they don't do the things that I do. So then I'm like, hey, I don't think I can help you in that regard, but maybe I can connect you. So the first thing is I think you figure out what you really want to do. So if you want to be a wholesaler, you got to reach out to community members that are doing a lot of wholesale. Because once you get involved in wholesale, you'll start to realize like there's a lot of different things that come into it, like acquisitions, dispo, sales, marketing, all this crazy stuff that it's a little overwhelming for a beginner. So I would connect with them. If you are a super, like, I'm gonna use me as an example, like I love talking to people, I love calling people on the phone. So when I was direct to seller, I had issues closing, right? Because I didn't know what to say or whatever it is. I connected with closers, right? Hey, who here is good at acquisitions or closing? I got leads. I don't know how to get them from A to C, right? Networking with intention is like the biggest thing. Just saying like, hey, I'm just trying to connect with Subto students. I don't think that's like the most effective because there's like, I think what, 18,000 of us or something like that, like across the country. So, and we all do different things. And some people only lend, some people only call. And it's like, hey, figure out what you want to do and find or figure out your strengths in that niche that you want to do and find the people in the community that fill that gap, right? I think that's the best way to do is once you break that down and not think super far out, like, oh, I want to wholesale $1 million of real estate this year, chunk it down. So you want to do wholesale. What's your strength? Okay, you're not extroverted and you don't like making calls. Well, why don't you partner with someone like me or someone else in the community that's extroverted, likes to make calls, loves to do sales? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm like ranting.
No, it does. I know.
Sorry.
No, just fill the gaps. As you start to take action and find your path, you're going to recognize the holes in the industry that maybe you can't fill in that role, and you'll find your other person or your
Yes,
business partner
absolutely.
or your community member that you can lean on. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, well, Tim, is there anything else you'd like to ask from the community? We've still got almost 90 people here. So guys, make sure you connect with Tim. I'm sure he could get you in on some action or at least get you connected to people who have action for you. What do you say, Tim?
Oh
Where
yeah,
can they
like
find you?
reach me out or wow, reach me out. Reach out to me on Instagram. That's like the best way to reach out to me. It's Tim Yu, so I can like type it in the chat in YouTube here. And I see the link in there, but reach out to me, send me a message. I would love to talk to you guys. I would love to connect with you guys. And like Julie was saying, if I can't help you, I will find someone to help you. Right. And I talked to quite a few of you guys in the chat already. And just let me know how I can help you. And I would love to connect with you guys. And I appreciate the time, guys.
Yes, thank you. Thanks everyone for coming, and make sure you go listen to Tim's episode of Get Creative on your drive home from work today.
Appreciate it.
Oh, you guys, you're in Louisville. You're already home.
Yeah, we're already home. So
In Arizona, I got some time still here.
I know it's crazy.
All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next time. Thanks,
See you guys.
Tim. Bye.